This is Distraction Therapy, a podcast to explain how we get through the day. Keep calm and carry on.
Hello, it's Saturday the 4th of April and this is a Distraction Therapy podcast with me, Rob Watson. And the aim of this podcast is really just to catch up with people I know and kind of get on with and to find out how we're all coping with the lockdown. So today I'm talking across the internet with Jurgis Masilionis. And he can correct me on my pronunciation in a moment, who's based in Lithuania. He's in Vilnius, and he's an audio engineer. So how's things with you, Jurgis?
I'm doing okay. I'm in lockdown for the third week at the moment, and just spending a lot of time at home. No, everybody's allowed to go out, but most people choose to stay in.
And how are you finding that?
Well, I think it's since I'm watching all the virus from a distance, because I feel healthy and haven't been exposed yet. I don't think so. It's kind of like a holiday in a sense, and it's a bit cynical to say that. I would think, but just it's time off. All the gigs are cancelled. All the recordings are, postponed. So I'm just staying at home and, spending time with myself, with my, other work.
So what did it feel? Yesterday was probably the worst day for me, where I felt like I was the walls were closing in a little bit. And so I went out this morning, had a walk and took some photos and posted them up onto Instagram and stuff like that. What's your mechanism for, when you get those kind of points where you feel you're about to kind of, no, step back. What do you do to creatively to keep yourself on an even keel?
Well, a walk is always like, a silver bullet in these situations. But I think one thing I found being in isolation is that how addicted to our phones we are. So I think you can relate that you just wake up and you just scroll mindlessly. You consume a lot of memes, a lot of content, and it's not even like conscious consuming of the content. So I guess that takes a large chunk of time. And I wouldn't, it's not something you would like to admit straight away, but yeah, there's a lot of I guess the way I can put it is that this is the third week of quarantine where I'm at. So the first one nobody knew what they were doing, so it was kind of like, oh, okay, don't need to go to work, just gonna stay at home, maybe have a few drinks, watch something, and the first week was kind of unproductive, I might say. And during the second week, you kind of think, okay, maybe I should put this time to better use. Maybe I should, catch up with some coursework or something. And so week 2 was like a period of realization that you have to put your time to better use. And now towards the end of week 3, I've actually, I'm glad that I've done stuff. I've caught up with my guitar playing, because I used to play guitar when I was a teenager. So I thought, maybe it's time to remember that. And actually, I'm really happy that after 2 years, I actually got back to my master's thesis. So, and been typing away at that as well.
So, yeah, it's been the kind of third week. Are you used to spending time on your own yourself, or are you somebody who needs a lot of contact with other people?
I guess I'm used to spending time on my own. The thing is that everybody says how they miss their friends and how they have parties on Zoom and Skype. And I thought the interesting thing about that is that nobody's like forbidden to meet up and, just go see each other and have a chat or something. But it's just that nobody feels like that, like meeting up. It's some sort of like invisible boundaries been drawn, both that you would, because around here people are quite, I would say they're taking this quite seriously, the lockdown, especially young people. So you don't see any people on the street. I was cycling across town to get the microphone for this thing that we're doing, and only saw a handful of people. I drove, cycled across town, and the thing is about meeting up with friends that it's kind of nobody wants to meet up. Everybody's waiting for this to be over, and nobody wants to quote unquote break the rules, and nobody wants to put themselves and others in danger. So I found it quite, well, interesting and odd at the same time.
It's like a kind of real sense of self-control, isn't it? It's like hold back a bit and
yeah.
Don't panic too much and don't impose yourself on other people.
Yeah, exactly. And even if I do miss the gang, I know that they're not going anywhere. We're going to be here, and might as well enjoy ourselves when it's safe, not half-assedly through 3 meters and with masks on our faces. So I guess if you're a more patient person, it's easier. If you're more introverted, it's easier. Because I guess I'm lucky enough that I live with flatmates, and there's 4 of us living here together, so we keep each other company. I think that's been a big part of me being quite at ease with this, because
that's like your family for the time being.
Yeah, because I told my parents, well, maybe I should go stay with you while this blows down. And since my parents are in their 60s, they said, "Nah, you better stay where you are. Don't expose. Don't let's not risk it, because if you're older, you're more at risk of having more consequences than just a cough and sniffles."
So you're from Romania, but you're living in Lithuania. Describe
No,
a bit of what,
that's not true. I'm.
Is that not true? Have I got that wrong?
I've always been from Lithuania.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay.
But I'm from a different.
So
I'm from a different town than
Right.
that I'm at right now.
Right. So you're in Vilnius.
Yep.
Describe that to us? What's it like?
It's like the biggest city in the country. About, I would guess, 500,000 people. That's the biggest city. Not a big country, and it's not a big place. I would say you can cycle across in less than an hour, but it's quite hip. Lots of startups, lots of hipsters, lots of international companies, lots of shared office spaces and all of that, lots of nice cafes. Well, just like any other nice European city, I would say. So what would you like to know about the place?
Well, I mean, I suppose spring is starting to come through now. I've heard that the winters can be quite cold.
It's actually snowing today.
Oh, lucky you! It's been a lovely sunny day here in Leicester. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still pretty cold. A bit colder than usual.
And your work is as an audio engineer. Mm-hmm. So kind of is that live audio and studio work?
Yeah, but I do both. I do gigs, live gigs, and studio work.
So there's enough work there to sustain a moderate living doing that.
Yeah, I would say. I'm freelance. I must admit I don't do as much work as I could. I take it quite easy, so I could have more work and make more money. But yeah, that's the only thing. That's the only job I got, and I live in the city centers, and that's nice.
Because I follow you on Instagram, and you're often posting pictures of mixing desks and
Yeah.
sound setups, and on your Instagram stories.
Yeah. I work with, basically bands hire me. I don't work at a venue or for a company. I just go around with bands. So bands hire me, and we go around. Like last fall, we played all over the place. Went to Hamburg and Seoul in South Korea, and did local tours. And it was actually pretty funny that I was thinking, when was the moment when I actually realized that this virus that's going through the world was actually real? Is that probably more than a month ago, we got an email of a gig we were supposed to play in Poland being cancelled. It was a festival, and they said, "Okay, guys, the festival is being postponed, and we, advise you don't buy plane tickets or rearrange your travel plans or whatever." And that was the first kind of indication that okay, this is closer. This is starting to affect my life, my work. But it still seemed pretty far away. It's somewhere in China, and it's a few cases in Europe, but it will blow over. And then one by one, gigs started being cancelled and postponed. And then during one gig that was supposed to be on the 14th of March, I think it was a Friday, we did a live stream from the studio with lots of guests and jam sessions and all of that. And that's when we found out that from Monday the country's on lockdown, everybody stay home, no gigs indefinitely. So it was interesting to see how from something far away, something that you just see on the news, it's next to you now.
And at that point, was there any kind of sense of panic, or there was a feeling here that there was a kind of weekend about 3 weeks, I'm losing track of time, about 2 weeks ago, where the kind of the official advice changed, and it felt like, whether it was just me but it felt like a wave just washing over the country of the general population kind of suddenly woke up to, this is real, isn't it, guys? This is actually happening.
So I think it was 2 weeks before that. I think when the UK caught on that this is really serious, like where I'm at, like it happened a week earlier. I think before the lockdown was announced, lots of people went buying pasta, fresh meat out of all things. I didn't understand that, why people started buying fresh meat en masse. That's gonna spoil in 3 days. But anyways, there wasn't a sense of panic, but people were preparing, I guess. And you hear wartime stories of drying bread and all of that. So kind of as if something that you've been told that's gonna happen happened. And there wasn't the sense of panic. We just all said, oh, okay, well, yeah, this is pretty serious. I guess we better take this serious. I can, yeah. Sorry.
So all I was going to say, maybe in the UK, I think there was less. Oh yeah, we got to take this seriously. It's like, this is not going to happen to us. But that might be because of historical reasons. In terms of what different countries have endured at different times in the past, particularly kind of conflict, and hopefully that remains absent from the picture with generally across the whole world with this. But it's easy to get into a mindset where you think your entitlement and your privilege is taken for granted, and then something like this comes along and it's like it shakes you right down into the roots, doesn't it? Where you kind of suddenly go, hang on a minute. this could all just disappear tomorrow. It's like that's where the anxiety comes in, I suppose.
Yeah, and especially when you see that the virus transcends class, because Prince Charles and Boris Johnson got the virus, so it's uh, it's not like you can get away from it. Everybody's on level playing field when it comes to that. But another thing I thought about, yes, I do agree that different backgrounds, different historical backgrounds, make you respond to crisis differently. But I think also because this is a pretty small nation, there's like three newspapers that everybody reads, and everybody kind of thinks, well, people don't think the same, but people think about the same things. And if all the three of the big internet newspapers said, okay guys, this is it, buckle up, this is happening, then everybody knows it. Because I imagine in huge countries like the USA, where you have lots of fatalities and lots of people getting sick, it's just because it's such a big place and so many different places where people get their information. It's just that there's no consensus of, is this real? We be worried? Lots of people thinking, there were lots of conspiracy theorists, lots of naysayers, and all of that. And I think that's why the US is having such a hard time with it. And that's why bigger countries are having such a hard time with it, because there's more people, whereas this is a more smaller, closer, and more homogenous, group of people in this country.
Yeah, you don't have to explain things in 10 different ways. You can explain it in 2 or 3 different ways.
Yeah, that exactly. And people are quite, and of course you have conspiracy theorists and naysayers here as well. It wouldn't be, it's just impossible not to have them. But people are kind of agree that, yeah, this is serious. I think you should sit this one out.
So what's your creative response been like, and the kind of response of your friends around you? Because I contacted you for this after seeing one of your Instagram stories where you said, ask me a question, one of those ones, and I thought, would you do a podcast? You said, yeah. And what's the how have you your music, photography? I'm a big fan of your Instagram approach, because I can never understand what the posts are. They're very cryptic, or tangential, I think might be the way to describe it. And I find that great, because they're not imitative, they're not copying other people and things like that. It's very unique view.
Well, yeah, I like treating Facebook and Instagram, social media, as like a performance, as an outlet for a joke. Basically everything needs to be funny. At least all the stuff I do, I try to make it funny. I try to make it pretty, of course, but I think if somebody has a little laugh, or somebody thinks, oh, this is quite weird, I think that's what I want to do. But I think I never used to. I've always avoided using social media as a form of showing myself. I try to distance myself from the things I post. But I have to admit that I was pretty bored and I needed some attention, so that's why I did the Ask Me Anything thing. And they were mainly close friends asking inside jokey things, but it's still pretty fun. Got some attention. So there's some indestructive, narcissistic internet things, I guess, are part of what I was doing. But also, after the first week and a half where we're just basically doing nothing and slacking, I'm trying to, catch up on my academic work, trying to listen to some new music, watch Tiger King, of course, because the whole world is watching Tiger King. And I wouldn't say I created much new stuff, but I guess I attempted to be more mindful towards music and film, because sometimes you just when you have the excuse that you have to be places and you have to do things, when you don't have that excuse, you might as well try to be, give some attention to things around you, well, things in the world that exist.
Yeah, and I suppose you begin to realise that, I mean, there are things that are available to you that you... let me describe it this way. I suppose you get used to the idea of having to think that you're processing information in, whether it's music or, almost that mindfulness approach is something which you have to constantly be feeding the slot machine. You have to be putting content into it, and it's like, actually, I've listened to very little. I've been scanning newspaper. I've got to come off the phone, as you said about earlier, about kind of picking the phone up, and you end up in that kind of gravity pull of social media, and it just becomes this loop. And I think I'm reaching the point where I know that I'll pass through that phase now, and I'll start to pick up my books again and sit quietly because it's really nice here at the moment. There's very little traffic.
Yes.
And there are very few people walking up and down my street. And, it's like, actually, you kind of start to drop things. And it was really nice last night. I just sat and listened to music and was reading some articles. I was reading articles online, but it was reading. And it's like not feeding myself with... I mean, I've watched plenty of stuff on Netflix, but I'm not into zombie films and I'm not into murder mysteries. And so that's like 3/4 of Netflix is not of interest to me. What's it been like in terms of, if you're living in a house with other people? What's it been like? Because have you been through that point of stepping on eggshells with people? You're having to be mindful of other people's jagged edges at times.
I think I've lived in this flat for about 3 years now, and it's a cheap flat in a very good in a good spot in town. So we had people coming and going. Had a different selection of roommates throughout the few years, but this set of roommates, I think we work really well. Because there's 2 boys, 2 girls living in the flat. And I would describe the 4 of us as 2 being the louder ones and 2 being the quiet ones. And basically, most of the time we just all keep to ourselves. But when we do congregate in the kitchen, it's usually just the loud ones. That's me and the other roommate.
But you're the loud one.
People are like chemicals, on their own they might seem inert, but sometimes different people bring out different things in each other. So we just end up talking and watching, Australian cooking shows in the kitchen, and I think it's been quite easy because we've lived together for a while now and we know each other's triggers and we know how to deal with each other. So it was quite good actually. I'm happy.
Yeah, it's kind of, you reach the point where you can ignore each other for a while.
Yeah.
You don't have to be attentive to each other's needs. Kind of somebody will leave you in your room for a few hours and you emerge a bit later. You don't always need to be,
you don't
on track.
Yeah, you don't have to feel bad that you're sitting there, you're talking, watching, and then suddenly you take off and do something else because you spend so much time in the same spot that nobody's mad at each other. For nobody considers it rude.
Yeah. I suppose that's a good way of looking at it. What's your academic work about at the moment? Then you said you're finishing off your master's thesis.
Yeah, I'm finishing off my master's thesis about analog to digital conversion. Well, basically any recording nowadays is done, via the computer. So how basically there's two things that happens when you record something. You you talk into a microphone and your mouth moves the air, and the moving air gets picked up by the microphone, which turns it into an electric signal, and then that electric signal gets turned into digital data, which is, you can do anything with it. So I'm researching, well, not researching, but writing, doing a very in-depth investigation about what happens and how it affects the sound when it gets turned from electricity to digital data. And
Is that from an engineering perspective or from a cultural perspective?
although the thing is that even though my bachelor's degree was, in the Faculty of Technology in DMU in Leicester, uh, I'm doing my master's in the Academy of Music and Theater. So I might have made it a bit too technical. So now I have to come up with a way to make it more like how the conversion process affects the aesthetic of the sound. But I'm just, spent all day reading about different chips, about converter chips, and it's quite interesting.
I suppose that's the problem, isn't it? You geek out on these things,
Yeah,
and
yeah, definitely.
you read 100 articles, and then you go back to your supervisor, and they're sitting there looking at you blankly, going, "What is this?"
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. But well, I've been I kept it pretty stagnant because I had to postpone it for a few years. I had to take academic leave when I first started. So this is the first time in 2 years that I'm actually working on it. So I'm quite happy that I'm even doing, and I've found some resources where I can research old magazines. But you can do it in Google Books, of course. But there's a website where all the old magazines like Billboard and NME and the like are archived, and they're scanned very beautifully, and you can search within them. This is great. It's the American Radio History Museum, something along those lines. And I found, kept reading magazine articles from the 70s about recording and how people think digital is going to ruin music and all of that.
So give us an example of what you mean by this, the kind of options, the perceptions and the options that it creates for within the process
Well,
of.
actually, my findings lead to that it doesn't really matter anymore. That the problem, well, the question itself, does it make a difference, is an anachronism. That's why I was reading Billboard from 1979 when it was a new thing and it was cutting edge. But there were already people saying that, oh, well, it's not the same as tape, and it's not, it's a deception. It's like, how the moving images are not moving images, but they're a bunch of still images in shown to you really fast. That's the same with audio. And that might have been true in the 80s when low-grade consumer, prosumer grade audio interfaces hit the markets, and everybody, I still need to find good proof for this, that it sounded worse than tape. But in the last 5 years, in the last 10 years, the technology has improved so much because of Moore's law that it's not even a variable anymore. So, well, that's one direction.
It's become the norm. It's become prevalent, and it's digital is just normal. It's become the water that the fish swim in, as opposed to initially when you were throwing people into the water, they weren't fish. So it's I'm sorry, I don't know where that analogy would go, but you know what I mean.
Well, one thing is that it's become common, and from a practical sense, it's nobody would ever come back to tape because you have to, calibrate the machines, and you have to use razors to edit. Nobody wants that. But
people do fetishize. There is a analog.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of there is all of that still out there, isn't there? There's that kind of cachet that people get from whether it's using plugins on Pro Tools to simulate an analog feel, or actually having hands-on use of the equipment. And then there's the the growth of the vinyl market, which is bigger than than it's been for a long time.
Well, there's a lot of truth to that. Actual analog equipment does sound very nice, and you can. There's nothing stopping you from having a beautiful analog signal path right up until where it gets converted into digital, so you can duplicate it losslessly and do whatever you want with it. I think it's not doesn't mean that analog is obsolete. It's just that the recording medium is much more efficient, practical, and I would dare I say sounds better. But I've never worked with tape. I'm young enough to never have worked with tape, so I wouldn't even know. Of course, Led Zeppelin and Boston and all the classic rock records are been done to tape, and they sound amazing. But
I think I remember Bob Dylan was quoted as saying that there were no interest in records produced after 1979 because the shift from analog to digital took place around that time in most studios.
Yes, that is true.
Or was happening at that time, and it changed the creative process of songwriting, and maybe it's less in the technology and more in the process and the way people work. The work schedule. I illustrate this with the difference between The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
Okay.
The Lord of the Rings was produced using film, and people still use celluloid.
Mm-hmm.
The Rise of Skywalker was made on celluloid, and it limits the production process. I know they scan it in very quickly, but the Lord of the Rings was made, and the audio recording, the Howard Shore scores, was blocked out for whatever it is, 2 months that they do it in London. Mm-hmm. So the film had to be locked down at the setup before they could start to do the score. The editing had to be done with temp tracks and things like that. It had to be done before the scoring took place in Abbey Road. But with The Hobbit, because they could recreate the acoustic of Abbey Road in the Wellington Town Hall. I've been watching those videos, the videos that come with these things many years ago, and they could do it simultaneously. They could record the score at the same time as editing the film, and they could make changes constantly. So you could make lots of these changes all the time, constantly, and it doesn't hold you back at all because there's no limitations to what the technology can do. You get lost and you stop being able to make informed choices. So sometimes having a very narrow, linear process actually improves the creative decision-making process. Does that sound... Is that something you'd agree with, or am I talking?
I definitely agree that limitations kind of sometimes make you spring into action, and just basically you're forced to make a decision. And I think that's the mantra everybody. I remember all throughout uni, the veterans kept saying that, oh yeah, well, with tape you would have 3 takes and that's it, and that's why the bands played better. And now you have unlimited digital room and you can do 1,000,000 takes. And I guess it's a double-edged sword that yes, I think imposing a limitation on yourself and on the creative process really does everything you just described. But I think on the other hand, having unlimited space, unlimited possibilities, and having, being able to do things to your material non-destructively and 1,000,000 times and distribute it non-destructively, I think it has its own perks as well. And it's always good to say that it's not better or worse, it's just different. So I guess not knowing what it was like to work with tape, I'm just happy that I don't have to limit my time, that I only have so much tape left, and it's going to cost me that much to get a new spool and all of that.
So let me ask you a question then. Which kind of DJs do you and your friends like to go and see? Somebody who's got a bag of vinyl, or somebody who's got a Mac, and you're kind of doing it virtually. Which is your preference? Who would you if if there's a choice between two or three venues that you can go and listen to some music, which one would you go to?
Well, actually, I don't go to club nights that barely but I wouldn't really care. Like what's the difference? If it sounds good, it sounds good. I'm one of those.
Well, one you've got the mix that comes through, the limitations of the mix that comes through with the vinyl, and the other one is that you can put lots of loops and effects and have 15 different things going on at the same time.
But if the DJ is good, either one, if he plays vinyl well, or if he does his loops on this Pioneer CDJs or whatever, the end result is that he's doing a good job and I'm enjoying myself, and it shouldn't matter how he got to that point that I'm having fun. So I'm not fussed at all.
Well, we'll just put a Spotify playlist on then. That sounds like the future of live venues.
I think that the whole point of like what makes a good DJ is that he digs up good tracks and puts them together. And
or she.
Yeah.
Let's not forget there are plenty of good.
If they get a bunch of good songs in one spot, and they put them in a good order, and they surprise me, then that's the only thing that matters. I don't care what they. Sometimes at house parties, when you have two YouTube tabs open and you do a crossfade between the two, and if the only thing that matters that the two songs that I'm playing back to back are good. If it's vinyl or digital, doesn't matter.
So I'm presuming then that if you don't go to many kind of club and bar nights, that kind of thing with DJs, it's live music that you're more focused on and you're interested in. And coming back to your question about the other corresponding thing about the music scene now is that it's more driven by live performance. So revenues for small bands is through, and this is what's hit people, and it's been a big impact in the UK with all of these gigs suddenly being cancelled, and the venues losing their income and performance opportunities has been a big challenge for everybody in terms of live music has become such a central part of the music scene. Is that the same in Vilnius?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, thing is about, like I said earlier, that it's a small place, and the market, especially in music, gets saturated really quickly. And the only way, and there's not a lot of money to be made of actually selling records. If you want to make music, if you want to make money from music, you play gigs, and most bands, at least the ones I work with, younger bands and indie bands, very few do it for a living. Barely anybody does indie music for a living around here. But it's still, big part of some of people's lives, and well, in a way, people aren't too fussed that there are no gigs for a few months, because there are barely any gigs in springtime anyway. It's festival season that everybody's worried about, and I've only realized that if this carries on for longer, there might not be festivals, and that will be a big deal. So, in terms of livelihood, I guess it's a different scale around here, and I guess it's more the promoters and the venues and the companies that put on festivals that will be at a loss much more than bands. Well, the bands I work with, at least, because most of young people who are in indie bands just spend this time writing riffs and jamming and coming up with songs.
Is there I mean, I think we're at one of those points of change, really, where there's been there's been a lot of investment in the UK in music venues, and it's become an industry and part of the industrial strategy for the country based around the creative industries, all that kind of stuff, which is kind of the courses that you did, and I remember back in Nottingham and Leicester, but there's all the DIY culture of, so we didn't need a massively sophisticated music venue promotion, marketing structure, industrial structure 10, 20 years ago. Maybe it was much less, but it's grown into this big thing that we seemingly now can't do without. What would the kind of DIY shape of things be like? Do you think it'd be good to go back to those more kind of crappy venues, or just meeting people in a field and shoving a few speakers up, or doing it as a kind of a kind of how do you describe it? It's kind of improvised, because the band, as you say, the bands can still play. Yeah. The musicians probably still have their instrument and access to a PA. Mm-hmm. You can set up in a shed, in a barn, in a field. You don't need extensive music promotion and venues to do that. Word of mouth can do some of that. Maybe that would drive our culture. Maybe that might be an unintended consequence.
Well, I think things like that never ceased happening. There's less or barely any money to be made from things like that. From a cultural standpoint, of course, like I work with the rock band that is quite famous here, amongst young people especially, and they did this thing that they invited like 50 people. We're doing a secret gig. Anybody who wants to come, write us, and we'll pick 50 people. And they did a gig like in the rehearsal space where they play, and it was like their best gig. There was 50 people in a room, and the band playing, amongst the people. So things like this were happening, and I guess will keep on happening, because if all the big festivals get canceled this year, I'm sure people will get together and just put on shows. Because I'm the part of the industry, quote unquote, that I'm involved with I wouldn't say it's DIY, but it's all indie bands. There's no big money involved. There's everything's kind of lax. So I wouldn't be surprised, because to a certain degree things like that are happening all the time. There's even one DIY venue in town that's an actual squat where people just live and put on shows, and it's been going on for like 10 years, I think. So I think I'm glad to feel that part of rock and roll is still going. Everybody wants to make money, and everybody plays the big festivals to get your 500 euros for the whole band, plus beer tickets or whatever. But a lot of there's a lot of just stuff. People do things just for the sake of rock and roll. I'm glad that that's still happening.
So what kind of music are your recommendations and tips that people should be listening to? Go on, drop a few. What's the name of the band that you were talking about a moment ago?
Oh, well, the one that put on the gig in their studio, they're called BA. It's just BA. And there's another band called Flash Voyage. I'm just naming bands that I work with.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's what captures people's attention, really. What gets you? What do you? What would you? Yeah, it's always different, isn't it? The audio engineer has a different perspective on the bands. But people always want to know, are these any good? Well, they're very well EQ'd. They've got nice kit.
Well, actually, the one that's that has a lot of fans. I think the it has a lot to do with the frontman. He's a very charismatic, outspoken guy. He's like he's much younger than I am, but he's he's basically he's living like a very, I wouldn't say eccentric, but he lives the rock star life, but not in the kind of rich people sense, but he's an actual your stereotype of a rock and roll boy with a leather jacket. But
Like a bohemian, but a rocker bohemian.
Yeah.
Living the dream. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's very charismatic. He has, he speaks his mind, and a lot of young people associate with that. It's
And what's his name? What's his name?
His name is Benas. Is Ben, and basically, I think he just inspires people to taps into that youthful sense of rebellion, and yeah, he's liked, and other like if you're liked by many people, you'll also be hated by a lot of people, and he he has his own struggles with that, but it's good fun hanging out with him. He he's like the front man of the band, and the lineup of the band changed a few times, but this current lineup is I would say the best, and we get along really well. And this is the band we went to South Korea with and went to Germany, and just it's good fun. It's rock and roll.
I think the last time we bumped into each other was in Liverpool a few years ago.
Yes, it was.
And you were working with were you working with a band, or were you doing some work for
I was doing work for a magazine. I was sent by a magazine to cover the Lithuanian band that was playing in Liverpool. And actually, last year I went to Liverpool with a different band, but as a sound engineer this time. We went to Sound City. It was good fun as well. It wasn't in the docks like it was last time when we met.
Yeah, I thought it was dreadful. It was freezing cold.
Yeah,
and,
I remember.
You could stand. There was one particular place where you stood there, and you had every single stage bleeding into each other.
That was terrible.
It was awful. They're not holding it. It's being redeveloped, that site now, so they can't hold it there. But they scaled back the site. I mean, I'd probably go again at some point. Obviously not this year. It'll have been cancelled, but. Maybe I'll have to save up and wait till next year.
It was really good.
I mean, I think
I really enjoyed it. I remember it was like I don't know my way around Liverpool that well, but it was like the Baltic Triangle and that end of town. But what really I think was really funny, because I haven't been to the UK for a few years at that point. And that was the first time I went back to the UK, and the place where we stayed was above an actual, like, a really rough pub. so we basically just walk in. There's lots of old lads sitting with their flat caps and all of that.
You're pretty much describing most of the pubs in the city centre.
Yeah, exactly. But some of the people from the band that I went with haven't been to the UK, and they just got thrown in straight into the most stereotypical UK experience. You go into a pub, there's all gentlemen. It's
propping up the bar, as they say.
And it was so good to be back. It was really good fun.
You hadn't missed it for a moment.
And then I said, "Okay, guys, what you want to do?" Because I felt I've been to Liverpool once, and I felt like, oh, I'm in charge. I'm going to show them around. So I said, "Do you want an authentic yet trashy experience?" They said, "Yes, of course." So okay, let's go to Wetherspoons. I went to Wetherspoons every day we stayed.
Shit, there's a whole kind of a section of the British population who are kind of bereft at the moment because Wetherspoons is closed.
Yeah, it's tragic.
And you're just wondering where everybody's gone. What are they doing? It's like they're buying stocks of cheap ale from the supermarket.
But you know what? I was really surprised that there's a Weatherspoons in London City. It's like a big fancy.
Oh, they're everywhere.
Yeah. But
it's a massive chain.
I knew that they were in any other place, but not London City. A big Art Deco building that used to be a bank. It's the Cross Keys, and you have rich people sitting and drinking Carling.
Yeah, they've got them. There's one at St Pancras Station, which is kind of they're really it's a well-oiled machine.
Yes.
I don't share the values of the guy who owns it.
Oh yeah, he has his own.
They're not the kind of and they're not the kind of clients that I particularly get on with. But it's I've been there. And needs must sometimes, but I think it's fascinating, these kind of big, massive pubs. You get like 1,000 people in some venues and things like that. And I think it's a shame that a lot of the small pubs that I grew up with, particularly in Liverpool, they closed down the backstreet pubs where you could maybe get 20 or 30 people in. And next time you go, and if we can meet up, we'll have a little tour.
Oh yeah, I would love
around,
that
around some of the backstreet pubs, but. It's not the same. The culture changes, and there's the development that's gone on in the city and some of the new venues. Every time I go back, I'm always surprised by how much it's. But actually, one of the things at the moment is I'm actually quite happy to see that let go of, and actually going back to something which would be a bit smaller, calmer, more local, more intimate, rather than everything being crowded into what's a kind of Friday and Saturday night? I mean, do you have a Friday and Saturday night in Vilnius? Is it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know what it's like. You remember what it's like in the UK. You get to 6 o'clock on a Saturday evening, and it's like escape, because otherwise you're going to get caught up in the craziness.
Yeah, it's actually not as intense as it was in Leicester. I remember like Friday night, and I forget the name of the street, but where all the clubs were. So there was like tons of people, and to a certain degree, yes, everybody goes out, but I think one thing I miss from the UK is that, and what I remembered when I came back, because I was in Liverpool and in London for like a few days, is just that the mainly young people go out on the town here, and in the UK everybody goes out. You have your older gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, and you have the lads and everything. Everybody's going out, everybody's having a good time. Here it's more of a young people's, your 20s 30s people mainly go out, and that, I think it's a shame. I think everybody should go out and have a good time, but I guess it's a cultural thing. It's not. People aren't used to that much, I guess.
Yeah, it might not be so good for people's livers and waistlines.
Well, it's just the thing that people drink at home. It's domestic alcoholism, as we say.
Yeah, well, that's the risk at the moment, isn't it? That it's kind of actually creates a problem.
Tell me about it.
Worse than I drink very little these days. I just thankfully don't have the impulse anymore. But we all change, I suppose. But so, what are the kind of things that you're looking forward to? Maybe have we got another couple of weeks of this lockdown? Is there any indication of at what point you're going to be emerging from this?
At this point, as far as I know, it was going to be until the 13th of April. And I'm thinking if it's going to be just the 13th of April, it's going to be a disaster, because the numbers still keep climbing. And if they're climbing not as much, so might as well let everybody out, is going to be a huge disaster.
You get that second wave. That's what they're afraid of.
So I think, I don't know, because I think if because last time at first when the quarantine started, it was for 2 weeks, and by the end of the first week they said it's going to be another 2 weeks. So the same pattern didn't repeat itself, and I thought if they had extended it, they will already have told us. but they haven't told us yet. But I think they're gonna tell it. Tell everybody next week. Everybody is actually pretty, you know, as usual, have the people, the naysayers, but everybody's kind of pleased how the government's dealing with this, and everybody kind of really came together. Everybody's working together, and all the NGOs got people together. They collected like 1.5 million euros in 10 days just from donations to get, you know, equipment and masks for the doctors that are on the front line. So there's a bit of silver lining to it, I guess. But as far as what's going to happen next, I'm not really sure.
So what kind of things are you looking forward to? What will you do first when it's, I mean, apart from supermarket shopping, you know, that kind of thing? What will you do apart from, you know, maybe to because I think the worst thing that could happen is that everybody goes out at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
There's a mass influx. It'll be chaos, and we have to think about maybe how a staged return is managed. But I don't know how that would work in practice. It'd be very difficult to do. Either everybody's in or everybody's out, I suppose. But you know, what will be your what's on your list of the fair? Yeah, a haircut.
Oh yeah,
or
definitely.
Have you got friends who've got clippers?
Oh, haircut is number one. But after I get a haircut, I think I'll just be happy. Like I said earlier, that like I've met up with a few friends during this just to, you know, hand over something that I've borrowed or for them to borrow something. You know, I've met a few friends, but you feel anxious. You don't feel comfortable meeting with somebody. So I'm waiting for that to go away, and you won't feel guilty or doing something wrong when you meet up with somebody. So I think the best thing for me will be just getting the whole mates together, the whole crew together, and not feeling bad about it.
Just having that pressure taken off you. I think I'm craving just going and sitting in a coffee shop. I realise how much I actually just enjoy that, even if it's just by myself. I'll have had 3 or 4 weeks of sitting in, you know, kind of living with my partner now, and then that's great. But there's nothing like being able to just go and sit in a coffee shop and put your headphones on and read a book or do some work or do nothing. And I kind of just, you know, that's for me is the one thing I'm craving at the moment. And,
well, I guess it's the things that you were used to and didn't realize that you liked having in your life, and like coffee, you know, just having your time in a coffee shop. And I think it's just meeting up with somebody and not feeling bad about it. and it's not like you feel bad about it just because, oh no, I'm doing a naughty thing. It's just that there's a certain vague sense of unease when you meet somebody. So
yeah, and the first question everybody's, is everything okay? You know, we hopefully one thing that comes out of this is that we learn to ask and listen to each other. And kind of ask that question, you know, how are you doing? You know, and it not just being a reflex, you know, not just being something that's said out of politeness, but it's like, are you holding on there? You know, have you managed? And most people will probably say just about, and that'll be good enough for us, I think. So,
well, that's one thing, but I. At the same time, something else to talk about for a change, eh?
It's the weather, the price of petrol.
Yeah, can we get back to talking about the weather?
yeah, quite exactly. That should be our motto. I can't wait for the day when I talk about how miserable it is or cold. You know, yeah, that'd be great. Right, it's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed our conversation. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, I always offer people the opportunity to share any contact. Yeah, I mean, obviously Instagram. What's your username on Instagram?
It's Jurginis, Jurginis.
And is there any other way that you want people to know about your work or anything like that? Do you have a website or anything, or is it just...
Most of what I do I put on Instagram, so just find me there.
Okay.
I used to have a website, but that's just very 2009.
Yeah, I've got two. I'm so stuck in the past. It's like websites the new vinyl.
I guess.
Well, this has been it's not been a decent. That's my other podcast. This is distraction therapy. And you can contact me, Rob Watson, on Twitter and Instagram at RobWMedia, or in my website is my very unfashionable website is robwatsonmedia.net. But thanks very much, Jurgis. That's been fantastic.
Well,
and until the next time.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
We'll and I think definitely coming over to Lithuania and catching up there. It's on my list of places I want to go.
Please do come over.
This is distraction therapy, a podcast to explain how we get through the day. Keep calm and carry on.